7:04 p.m. calling the meeting to order. The first line of business is to accept the meeting minutes from the November 9th meeting. I sent all of you a copy of that.
So moved.
Everybody okay for posting? Say
Yeah.
aye.
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 Okay, great. Meetings are accepted as written. We just discussed that we have only an hour, so it's going to be tough to get through all these recommendations to go through them. I sent Evan, I tried to tabulate some of the information that we received from everybody. Thank you for picking your top 5. It seemed like that was a good way to get us started at least. So Evan, do you mind sharing the screen?
Yep, just pulling it up.
Thank you. And while that's happening, we asked for some, I asked the task force if anybody had any recommendations on how to go through this in a timely manner. I heard some comments back. Thank you, everybody who did comment back. So what we'll try to do is we'll go through the ones that we kind of all agreed on, and then we'll go through the list, the Excel list that Carl had been maintaining. And we'll go through them line by line and then just take a vote. One of the things Evan and I discussed was maybe we take a pre-vote, like we'll say number 1. And if we have a show of hands or, 5 yeses and 1 no, that person who doesn't agree with that recommendation could talk about why or why not. Or we can just go through them line by line and then have discussion for limit up to 5 minutes and then move on because we're limited time. Is anybody opposed to that option of starting with a quick vote and then going through with the people who may have an issue with it?
Sounds good.
I'm sort of curious. I mean, Linda had said that we were going to vote, and then the people who voted against or were in the majority could have an opinion. Are we still doing that?
Yeah, Linda was the one who gave us the advice, John, that there's 6 of us here as task force members, and that if the majority 4 vote yes, then that would count as a yes. So that would be one of the things that we'll talk about. If 5 of us say yes for, let's just say number 16, we're going to probably put that in a recommendation list. But if it was 3 and 3, we would not. Does that answer your question?
No, I mean, if it's not a majority but a minority, can they still have an opinion about why they voted no?
Yeah, we'll that's what we'll do tonight. That's what I'm suggesting. So
But
let's
does
just
that go in
say,
does
That
go
will be
in
part of the
report?
recommendation.
Yeah.
pardon me?
That will go in as part of the recommendation.
No, it would not go in as the recommendation because we're going to present the select board with the recommendations.
I thought Linda said that there would be opportunity for people who were in the minority to say why they voted no.
We'll be in the meeting
As
minutes.
part of the recommendation.
No, that's not how I understood it. But it would be in the minutes, what we do. Are you concerned that we're going to have a bunch of no's right now?
Yes, I am.
Okay, so what are you suggesting?
That there be a sort of for each, maybe a bullet item of discussion. You could say majority opinion was this, minority opinion was this, and for those reasons. So for each item, maybe something like that.
I think I'm okay with that. Other task force members, what do you think? One thing we have to be careful of is we're going to be presenting this to the select board in January or February. And, they've asked for a clean copy of our recommendations. So I just want to be very,
Yes,
cautious.
Yeah, so I think that's something we can hash out. To me, that's more of a report writing issue. I think today is understanding what the recommendations are and what the varying opinions are for each. And that'll be in the minutes, and then we can have a vote. And then as we do the actual drafting of the report, we can figure out and get maybe some better advice from Linda as to what the best way is to present that. If I think we do, ideally we have a cohesive voice going back to the select board. But certainly understand that. So I think we can sort of sort that out as we do our drafting.
Any other comment before we move forward? Okay. So thanks, Carl, for keeping the list together for us. And let's go through it. I did a quick tally. What you see on the screen right now are the all of us who responded did put their top 5. I don't know if they're in order, but they put their top 5. And the first thing I noticed was that number 2 and number 6 on the list had all of our votes as a yes. Number-
I don't think I was voting yes. I was voting for discussion. I thought that's what we were talking. We were not voting at this point. We were voting.
We're going,
Which
sorry,
recommendations to
sorry, Alyssa,
discuss.
you're right. We were putting our top 5 recommendations that we thought were the most important individually. And sorry, let me rephrase. We all had number 2 and number 6 on our top 5 lists. So I'm just trying to
You're
sort
on
the
Carl's
data.
list?
Yeah. So Evan, can you scroll down to the second page, please? You all received the list of the recommendations. They are by number. And when you sent in the 5 that you felt just to get this kick started was the most important, that these are the 17. We will discuss each one. But in order to expedite the meeting, I did review everything task force members sent and collated, and I can tell you that number 2 here, continue water testing, and number 6, add the permanent signage in Station Cove, and there's a little more detail there. Everybody had that on their top 5. Is that clear?
Yes.
Yep.
Great. Okay, thank you. Can you scroll back up, Evan? Thank you. Then I moved down. Number 4 had 3, and I can change the word votes, 3 top 5, and that was Jen, Evan, and Carl. Number 3 is
Can you scroll down to the second page again?
actually it's probably right there on one of your lists.
Yeah,
Okay.
Number 4, that's the parking laws on the access road.
Okay. Can't see the next one, sorry. Number 5 had 2 votes. That is, I believe,
Check the
The
White
Rainbow
Pond
Trout.
membership. 5 is check the White Pond membership.
oh, okay, that was okay. So Beth and Carl, White Pond membership. Oh, okay, thank you. And the only other one that had more than 1 vote was,
Number 10.
Yeah, trash receptacles and portable toilets.
Yeah.
Year round.
so that was just to kind of summarize what I saw as the common themes or common answers. So let's just start going through, and I thought that was actually a good starting, because if we all thought number 2 and 6 were important, I'm going to guess that those will be one of our recommendations. So number 1, let's start with number 1 was continue implementation of the APOD technology.
Yeah. The town has, I think we can even fine tune that by saying, there's a CPC application in from the NRC to acquire and set up a maintenance contract for the APOD for next year. So I think we could, even recommend the support of the CPC application for that.
I would actually say, I would like to keep it. We recommend that the APOD continue its use. To many people, and in the survey itself, it doesn't matter who it's funded by, but we want it to be funded.
Yes.
All right. Evan, I'll just do a check with you. Do you want to, when we go through these, go through them all? Or try to go through the ones we can get through tonight and say, vote on them one by one as we go through, so we at least have some, or anybody out there, just tell me. I don't want to be the, the boss of the whole thing.
I would
If we-
vote on each one, yeah, while it's fresh in our mind, yeah.
Okay. I'm good with that too. Everybody else fine with that?
Yes.
Yep.
Great. Okay. So number one, do we all agree that continued use of the APOD is a
Yes.
recommendation?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes,
Yes,
Yes. Okay. So we have all 6 ayes. Yes. Thank you. Okay. Number two, continue testing of water quality to assess swimming safety. Town of Concord, that was who's responsible. There was, like I said, I think there was 5
Well, I think
people
my,
saying yes.
my issue with this is that, you know, that doesn't have a really lot of meaning in terms of the specificity of water quality testing. I think continued testing of the water quality for swimming safety, I believe that we should continue doing the E. coli testing at the beach. Other than that, for swimming safety, I'm not exactly sure what testing should be continued.
I would
So
agree
if
with that.
you,
I would agree with that, I think we should drop the cyanobacteria testing and just continue with the bacteria testing at the beach.
so if you recall, early on in our task force, we had Melanie Deneen come and talk to us. And I did email John Coleman about this. Nancy Leland had been testing last year. I'll try to make this quick because we only have a few minutes. She declined to do further testing. The town then took it over. They had Board of Health people doing the testing, and they post it every week. They save a lot of money by not doing actual cyanobacteria testing, but they're looking at indicators. And if something starts trending upwards, then they will do an actual test. They have indeed budgeted for next year. And along with the APOD and the E. coli testing is mandated by the state, they are planning to continue the testing. And it was a warning signal. And if you look at the website, the data is there. Very good reports, actually, by the way. So they are intending to continue to test, which I was happy to see. And I don't know why you wouldn't want to continue to test.
Well, when I talked to Melanie about the data, because I was trying to understand that spreadsheet, and she couldn't explain what the numbers meant, what she was doing. So I thought, if you don't understand why you're testing for something, then there's no point in testing for it. That particularly with relates to the cyanotoxin data.
I can't answer that. Anybody else want to talk? Because when I talked to her and when she talked to us, they were learning, and they have levels which they want to stay within. And if they go above, they do another test.
For what are you talking about when you say test? Which test is that?
They're looking for indicators, and I'm not going to get into the data. You can look on the website and review it. They're looking for data that shows increases in certain markers. And if they see that, then they'll do an actual cyanobacteria test, because that's for safety, just like E. coli is for safety. Because if it morphs into something that's dangerous, like, depending on the phase and the type, it's not safe for swimming. And
So
as we
if
know,
you-
that's what happened in 2022.
they have to do E. coli regardless, right?
Yes,
At the beach.
absolutely. Absolutely. And we have to also do it. It's being done at the Dover Street Beach as well.
I mean, Beth, you told me to look at the website and I tried and I couldn't get in and I tried to they said I had to have an account. I tried to make an account. I still couldn't get in.
Oh, I'll send you the link, John. It's real easy. It's
Yeah.
on the Board of Health.
Actually, I had the same problem. Earlier in the year, I could look at it, but now I can't.
Yeah, I mean, it seems to be kind of a messed up presentation of data. It seems to be uninterpretable by the town employees. And we didn't have any cyanobacteria problems this year. I just think it should be dropped. I don't think it's worth a cost.
But I don't know how you can say that if you couldn't see the data.
Well, we didn't have any.
Looked at it earlier in the year, during the summer season, and that's when I talked to Melanie about it. And
We saw the
trying to
Leland presentation. That wasn't very clear. And we had had a town employee essentially said she didn't know what to do with all this data, quote unquote.
So I'm just thinking back to a year or two ago, and there was a visible algae bloom, and it was, so they kind of closed the beach, tested it, and then got the results back from the test and had a go, no go, whether or not to open the beach. So I don't know exactly what they're testing for, but some sort of a toxin or toxin level. And that is what was, to my understanding, that's what was informing whether or not to open or keep the beach closed.
Yeah, but that's all activated in your case, or what you're citing, after a bloom is cited, not just routine testing, when there's no blooms there, when there's no visible bloom.
No, that's incorrect.
Pardon?
That is incorrect. When University of New Hampshire was testing, they were actually looking at the types of algae, the types of bacteria they were seeing, or algae they were seeing. And they would do the same thing at a much more rigorous, with more rigorous methods. And they would do warnings. And that's when we had warnings. There was green, yellow, and red. And that's what the Board of Health was publishing. We had 2 warnings this summer that said, there was some creeping up, but it wasn't enough to close the beach. So it's not, the whole point of it wasn't just to do something when you see a bloom. Of course, they also have the report of bloom on the website, as you're probably all familiar with, that is for anybody there to, send a picture or state where they saw it. And they look at that as well. But the testing is supposed to be predictive, not after the fact.
Yeah, I mean, I think, I don't know the exact process, but if we're in there testing for certain things, is it that much more to add another item that we're looking for while we're in there?
Yeah, it's a very, I mean, to do the cyanotoxin testing analysis is a very different thing. And she was looking at the particular cyanobacteria, I think by a microscopic analysis, and just looking at mass, I believe, which is a potential indicator of the cyanotoxin. But as I said, it makes sense to me to, it doesn't have to be proactive. I don't think it gains you very much, rather than just seeing if there's a bloom, then you test for the cyanotoxin content, and based on that, you would close the pond for swimming.
Well,
mean, that's-
I see the way that this is written, continue testing of water quality to assess swimming safety. Doesn't get into the weeds about whether it's cyanobacteria or E. coli. It's just saying, test the water so that it's safe for swimming. So I don't think we really need to get into it.
Well, it refers to a URL, which isn't specified, but I assume that has details of what the testing would be. It's not a
Yeah,
general.
I mean, I put that in because, there's data on the Concord website about test results. So that's the URL we would put in there.
Right, I mean, I think the state of Massachusetts requires any public,
Definitely E. coli, yes.
if it's open for the public to swim, it needs to be tested. So, that doesn't seem, it seems to me that recommendation should be in there.
Well, how about if we said something like continue testing of water quality to assess swimming safety in accordance with Massachusetts state guidelines?
That works for me.
It doesn't, the state guidelines as of yet do not have, New Hampshire has requirements, Massachusetts doesn't.
Oh, really?
I mean, I just think I think the cyanobacteria has been the biggest issue in the pond for the last decade. And we've gone through a number of remediation measures at certain levels of cost that I think having this information to know whether or not those measures are working and seeing the trends of them, I think is very important.
I think it's important too, that we know what's happening. whether there's cyanobacteria or E. coli or any other problem that's gonna make it unsafe to swim for people, animals, and so on.
I think perhaps another way to look at it, one thing we're only discussing this, perhaps we talk about, there's a long history of testing for temperature, Secchi disc, and dissolved oxygen. And, we've got a great long history of that, and that might be interesting to recommend continued testing of those as a general indicator of water quality in the pond.
Something may pop up here. I'm working on it at the moment. It may start making noise.
Looking for a Medicare Advantage plan or feel stuck with your current plan?
Whoever Cynthia is, you're on, please mute yourself.
Yeah, I'd like to see the water quality testing continued. So that was volunteer basis, and they did a pretty good job. Has that been suspended, and will that ever get activated again?
Once the town took over the beach, that was suspended not once the town took over the beach. It was suspended the year before last. It was volunteer people who lived in the neighborhood who were doing.
Why did they stop?
Excuse me, they were doing the Secchi and the temperatures.
And the oxygen.
Yeah, and those.
And
I
they
think
also were doing, they were doing one person was doing another test too, so. But they're not doing that right now.
Why
And
not?
John, they're volunteers.
Right, but I mean,
could
why? They were very committed to it. I talked to them and everything. They were into it, and then it stopped, and I was just like, is it because they were tired of it, or why did they stop? And how can we get them
I
going?
don't think this committee can figure that out. I think we should try and get through the recommendations, because we're already at 7:25.
Yeah, so any other points on number 2 real quick?
Yeah, thanks, Evan and Jennifer, my timekeepers. You said 2 to 5 minutes.
I mean,
All right,
it's
do you want to
clearly
take?
an important one, but I think we should probably move to a vote and
Yeah, I agreed.
Well,
So
so we're gonna
who-
continue to keep the wording the way it is?
Do you want to revise it to E. coli and cyanobacteria testing, or specify those two?
Well, you could get specific of continued testing, for, as I said, bacteria, temperature, Secchi disc, dissolved oxygen, bacteria.
to me, I think, water quality and safety sort of is a catch-all.
Yeah.
I think those are all things that would fall under those categories.
I agree.
Well, I mean, the temperature, DO and Secchi disc are not safety issues. But they're the environmental health of the pond, water quality issues.
Yeah, I would think water quality. So I think we have the term water quality in there. I think, in my view, captures that.
I don't think that the town is going to leap to doing those measurements if they're just seeing water quality. Everything's water quality. They say, well, we're doing that with bacteria. That's not going to cut it.
Should we put a parentheses such as Secchi disc and temperature and oxygen?
How about to include?
We're saying the town never paid for those. Those are volunteers.
Yeah,
It's still, it's being done. The Board of Health is doing the testing. And John Higgins is also doing some of this testing when he's assessing, when he goes in, which is quite often. So I believe that Melanie's team, actually somebody goes out and they do the Secchi disc. So we can actually write this to continue water quality testing, including required testing by the state, E. coli, and other testing, including, and I really want to include the predictors for cyanobacteria blooms, because I think it's really, really helped us from a safety perspective, because you don't want like Jennifer said, your dog or little baby swimming when there's active blooms, and just because sometimes you don't see a bloom doesn't mean it's safe. So I think we can word it that says we continue testing, and we can put we can put a parentheses of all the types of testing that should continue.
So can you write up a recommendation, maybe put in the chat for how you want that worded?
Yeah, I won't be doing that right now because we're running out of time. I can, after we'll do minutes and we can kind of fine tune these. I think we need to move on.
Okay, so we will,
We're not.
I think
gonna vote
verbally
on
we
this at
all,
this point.
I think what
I
we
think
just heard
verbally
verbally,
Yeah,
everybody was in
Right.
agreement from what I heard.
well, so no, so you'll defer a vote until we see the actual recommendation that you're gonna present? I think. I mean, you can't
I
vote on
think-
something if we don't know what it is.
what, can we just agree that we just say all the testing, continue testing that's being done currently?
No,
Why?
because I don't like that cyanotoxin testing. I think it's a
Well,
complete.
actually, it's not
time.
being
I
done
think
each
Melanie
time.
thought it was a waste of time. She couldn't explain to me what the numbers meant.
Alyssa, I think we have to take a vote, and just because she didn't explain it to you doesn't mean it's not a good thing.
She couldn't explain it to me because it didn't make any sense. And it wasn't a good thing
Okay.
necessarily.
I don't know what to say. It sounded like when we walked into this meeting, we were all on board for water quality testing. And I mean, I
thought we
can
weren't
invite
gonna
Melanie, we
discuss
can
it because I
invite,
thought the words-
excuse me, let me finish, please. We can invite Melanie back. This is going to prolong our efforts, and I'm fine with that too. Because she was able to explain things to me. So should we take a vote to then just table this and have Melanie come back and tell us what's going on? I can tell you it's going to be in the budget next year. That is for sure.
Or, you know, John and Alyssa, if you look at the data, will that give you enough information to make a decision? Like the website you couldn't get on yet?
I would like to see that. I would like to see that website, although I can't get onto it now. I don't know. But I mean, as it stands now, I'd vote against it because, it doesn't make sense to me.
As it stands now, who would vote for it then?
I would.
I would. Carl, Evan, John, no.
Correct.
Alyssa,
No,
Jennifer.
Yes,
Okay, so we have 4 saying yes for that right now. Let's just move on. John, I would maybe suggest you email Melanie and ask her how to gain access to that. All right, number 3, provide permanent ranger for Sachem's Cove from May through September. We also had discussions during our meetings about, even weekends only. We saw from the survey that most people were advocating for that as well. Do we want to, who's against having a ranger?
it's your wording. I support a ranger, but not a permanent ranger, for example. So just,
Yeah, I would think that we just keep the ranger arrangement as it is now. Because the interview with the ranger said that, it was working. And to me, that's a good recommendation for keeping it going.
I think from the survey and also discussions with people who live in the pond, it's not working.
Well, looking at the larger picture, I think that the person's actually doing the work. I mean, if she was overloaded, if the place was getting trashed out, she'd know it and would respond. So
The people who live in the pond, they say it is being trashed down. There's tons of people there.
it's interesting. I've been reading a lot of history of the pond. There used to be thousands of people using that pond on a daily basis. The Sachem's Cove was an active swimming beach, used by the Sperry Corporation. The place was fairly well denuded of vegetation, and it's come back. So I think it's all in the basis of where you start looking at things. And as I said, I think it's an incredibly healthy pond. And I think the ranger is doing a great job, as she says she is. I think her Natural Resources Commission, who hires her, is very happy with the job that she's doing. I, for one, would support a ranger there on both Saturdays and Sundays on an intermittent basis.
define intermittent?
Well, it's a conservation ranger, so she would be responsible, he or she would be responsible for all of the conservation parcels.
So intermittent right now, we saw from the survey is not good enough. If she's covering 13 or 14 properties on the weekends, and only one day on the weekend, by the way, that's really not what we were hearing from people who've attended our meetings and from the survey. So I think people are asking for more coverage.
I agree.
I think some people are. I don't agree with it.
Jennifer, you agree? Alyssa does not. Carl,
No, I support it, yeah.
Evan,
I firmly support it, and I think we're saying a lot of the same things. I think having the ranger there on the weekends is the priority.
I mean, it comes down to funding, right? So that may be the feedback from the town that there's only so much funding and we can only do weekends or something, to be determined.
yeah, definitely. Because they had 2 rangers the year before. They had much more coverage with those 2, and if they train them, and I get that. So maybe we could word it to say, provide a ranger on, Saturday and Sundays at a minimum. I don't know how we can word that they don't have to cover all those other properties.
Instead of particularly weekends, just say definitely weekends, or
And by permanent, do you mean year round? What does permanent mean?
no, it says May through
No, it
September.
says, yeah, May through September.
May through September. But still, what is what is a permanent?
I think just year to every year.
Oh.
Right.
Permanent.
That's not what I get out of permanent. I get permanent is like 24 hours a day, or 8 hours a day, or dedicated. I don't see how this wording fits in with what we've got going now. I mean, I don't see why we don't just continue what we've got now.
Because it doesn't work then.
I mean, when I go over there, I don't see a lot of trash.
Well, the neighborhood people pick it up.
Right.
Well, that's fine. It's a system that's working. I mean, there should be community input. There should be stewards of the pond.
So those people that are doing that came back in the survey and said, we'd like coverage on both weekend days.
Hey, yeah, people throw trash in my front yard and park out in front of my house, and it's just part of life.
All right, we got a lot to get through. Should we take a vote on this one, or any more comments?
Well, what's the wording now? Are you gonna keep the same wording? Are you gonna?
I mean, I don't know.
So
I'm
I
fine with
would-
the word permanent doesn't matter to me. I think it says the same thing with or without that word. But I think the weekend focus is the key to me.
So if you said provide ranger for Sachem's Cove. So you think someone should be there for 8 hours a day? From May through September? Is that what you're saying?
Me personally, I'm not saying 8 hours, but doing 14 sites on one weekend day, to me, is not enough coverage.
So what would be?
Well, it's gonna vary week to week, weather to weather, and wherever the crowds are. But I think some presence on every summer weekend day is important.
So if you said provide a ranger for Sachem's Cove, May through September, to visit Sachem's Cove at least once per day on weekends?
What'd you just say, Alyssa? Can you repeat that, please?
Provide ranger for Sachem's Cove from May through September, at least once a day.
Nah, I don't agree. Once a day means they still can cover 13 other properties. I mean, we've heard from the people, we've heard from everybody. you know, 40 minutes is probably with that many properties to cover.
Well, I don't know
That's
that
not
it
enough.
covers every single one every day, you know, I think that particularly weekends, you know, is, shows a focus to
So
be on attention for.
I think we're getting really bogged down in the tactics here. I think our job is the recommendation. Here's the issue that needs to be addressed. We don't necessarily have to have the exact tactic for addressing that.
Or you're right, we don't have to specify the exact number of hours.
Right? I mean, the feedback we got is not enough ranger coverage in the cove.
Yeah, but I just want this to reflect that I mean, you're not talking, hopefully, I don't think you're talking about someone there, as I said, someone to stay at Satcham's Cove for the entire length of the workday on weekends. I mean,
Yeah, I mean, I think on Saturday, May 2nd at 8 a.m., you probably don't need a ton of coverage. I agree. So on July 16th at 3 p.m., 11 a.m., that's a different story.
I mean,
So-
it's not easy to hire someone to like show up on hot days when it's crowded, you know, that doesn't work that way.
But that's not our problem. This is a recommendation.
The
Yeah, I mean,
recommendation is
it'll
more
be a
ranger coverage.
negotiation with town, both funding, maybe the Department of Rec will fund somebody that walks over there once in a while. I mean, we can, that's part of the discussion with the town.
I don't know. I think that, you know, it's going to get heavy use on hot days. People are going to continue to swim in there. And there'll probably be more trash on those days than others, and it'll take a while to clean up in between them. But I think that that's just the way it goes, you know, it's an attractive place. The people who live around there should be happy that they have an attractive place to live by.
so let me take a shot at a recommendation and provide a ranger for Satcham's Cove area from May through September with a focus on hot days, the May through September, including Saturdays and Sundays, particularly on hot summer days or something like that.
You know, as we're discussing this and we're only on number 3 and it's 7:42 p.m. I think maybe we need to go back and do some homework. Carl was taking notes from our previous meetings. Thank you, Carl. And thank you for everybody who's done some volunteering. If you have issues with the wording, before we decide what we're going to approve or not, why not go through the recommendations? If there's anything missing, add them, and let's go back to the drawing board, because we cannot be spending 20 minutes on a word that somebody doesn't agree with. So I'm finding this to be non-value added time to discuss ad nauseum one word or 2 words. So would it be better to try to retool these things and suggest the wording that would be more appropriate in all of your minds? And please, everybody comment here, because we're not going to get very far.
I'm happy to do that, but I'm not sure that that will get us anywhere then if we come with each of our own sentences.
I think that,
And-
Alyssa, you could, if you want to take the ball and start, you could take the Word document and add some red lines, and then we could send it to each member of one at a time after that for comment, not all together, because there might be added or, you know, deleted or comments. That's one way to do it. We do it all the time in business.
I would be happy to do that for item 2 and item 3, and maybe more as we go along.
I just don't know if it's value added to go through each one, because we were going to limit, you know, 2 to 5 minutes on each point, and we're only in number 3 still. And number 3, 4 people had already voted yes on that. So it's quite frustrating.
or the people voted that it was an important issue. They didn't say yes.
I'm not understanding.
So a miscommunication or a misunderstanding amongst our group as to, I understood it to be, here are my top 5 recommendations.
I understood it to be the 5 items of most importance to discuss.
Okay, so we had a miscommunication there.
And I think I wrote that to you in an email, Beth.
I agree. I don't think we're going to get through this tonight, and I think seeing things written down that people would agree to, that will enable us to react and vote. But I think going through with varying opinions and wordsmithing at the same time, I don't see us getting through it.
Okay, so next step, what are we doing? We're gonna just look for red lines on each of these from every individual that wants to change them.
I think, yeah, Carl, I think one thing we can discuss, Evan, could you scroll down? One thing we should discuss right now with our limited time left is the future White Pond team, because we've talked about it. People have different views, meet quarterly, meet monthly. Let's give a little input into what we think should happen for the future.
Wait a minute, before we do that, how about number 10, provide trash receptacles? Does anyone object to that as it's written?
Well, a little bit, just only because I just limiting it somewhat in the sense that, I know it, like at Emerson Field, the town picks up trash on through like November 15th, but from November 15th to April 1st, they don't. And I think that would sort of be the same situation here. I think only because of access issues of having someone go down to get the receptacles. And actually, like Lowell Road boat, they don't even go down that access road. Someone from the Natural Resources Commission has to wheel the barrel up to the road. So I think if we said, something about provide the trash receptacles and portable toilets through, an expanded, as I said, through from April 1st to November 15th or something was more appropriate, more consistent with other recreational areas in town.
Right. What about ice fishermen?
It's not that it's not a problem. The same thing as when you go to Emerson Field, there's people there all the time and, the hunt's not open and, it's the same kind of issue and it's the same kind of issue with dog waste, but it's just an access issue for the waste removal people and the porta potty people.
Emerson Field has got toilets available at Hunt Gym.
When it's open.
Right, which is every weekday. Maybe Saturdays, I don't know.
But they don't pick up the barrels and, because in the winter time.
Really? So all that dog waste just sits there all winter or what?
What does they do? There's a completely amorphous, or there was at least when I had a dog, a friends group, people, they actually wheel the barrow out to the street for the town to get it. At least that's what they used to do, at least. But there's certainly DPW or the waste management company that
Anyway, we could still ask them to do it.
Yeah, I sort of like, and probably a little bit of what Alyssa's saying, one, the access, and two, just I think one of the things that we learned with COVID, when sort of all the trash receptacles were taken out of the beaches, is people, for the most part, took their own trash home with them. So carry it in, carry it out.
We don't need trash receptacles.
Well, it's not that we don't need them, it'd be nice, but, I think, if we made it consistent with other recreational facilities in the town, outdoor recreational or conservation facilities, I think all the other conservation facilities are carry in, carry out. Lowell Road is the only one I know where they place the barrow down at the bottom and then they wheel it up.
Right, if there's snow, they're not gonna be able to go down and,
Yeah, and then they have to set up the contract with the waste management people, so that's how they manage it, which is, a shame, because you can get a beautiful day in December, but the contract is set from, as you said, somewhere around April 1st or April 15th to November 15th.
okay.
So sounds like another one that could probably use a little wordsmithing.
Yeah.
Should we jump back to the future team, Beth?
Sure.
So what is everybody's thoughts on this? We have a
I
couple
think,
different line
You know,
items.
there's a
Carl, go ahead,
few
Carl.
organizations like Friends of White Pond and, other folks like, the guy that does the APOD, I forget his name, that have, we're advocates of White Pond. But I think we need to have some kind of town advocate, if you will, going forward for issues that will continue. There'll be things that come up, like we talked about, working with the wastewater team as they invest in redoing the sewer systems, whether White Pond can be part of that. Like all the things we're talking about here, testing, rangers, we should still have some advocacy, whether it has to be, a couple times a month, I don't think so. But it should be a town group or town couple of people that continues to represent White Pond, if you will, with all these issues we're talking. So I see it more as like a quarterly meeting or maybe every couple of months, and a small body that interfaces with these issues, interfaces with the, Department of Rec and so forth.
I think so too, quarterly or bi-monthly.
I would recommend that there not be a town board as much as an active Friends of White Pond that would be consistent with other resources in town where there's friends of that do things like the water quality testing, the updating of the septic system database. I think when there's an issue, people, friends groups, butters or whatever, will mobilize to get the town's attention. And I think that's the appropriate way to do it. I do think there should be better coordination among town departments for this issue as well as many other issues in the town. But for White Pond, I don't know that there needs to be a town advisory board to continue with it. That would be inconsistent with the other town conservation parcels where it's only friends groups. And I think we have had in the past a very active friends group, and there will be again when there's issues, as we could see from our meeting last week or two. Without an issue, there was very little, mobilization of the Friends of White Pond.
So I think historically over the last 6, 7, 8 years, there was a bit of a divide. And I think it became a little bit of people, abutters or residents, sort of within the watershed would just complain. And that's what it sounded like to the town. So an issue would come up and it wasn't, it sort of felt like the impression sort of felt like it's just kind of a NIMBY thing and, we want this, we want this. And, the town is concerned about all town residents, which I think was a little bit of the goal of this task force that we sit on, was not just to have folks that live right next to the pond, to go out and do that survey of all residents of town. Particularly with the land gift to the town, it's a great town resource that wasn't necessarily getting used by the rest of the town. And I think having this sort of ongoing communication body with sort of representation of the health of the ponds, giving kind of keeping open dialogue with the select board, I think is critically important. And I think that's something that got fractured over the last handful of years.
I'm surprised at that, actually, because I thought the recommendations, the vision statement of the White Pond Advisory Committee was heavily biased towards the abutters, and didn't seem to be looking out for the interests of the town as a whole.
I think that's certainly what the impression of that body was, and why the select board suspended it. So I think sort of replacing that, I think, is with some sort of a communication body that can keep an eye out for the interests of the pond and how it's enjoyed by the whole town. I think it is important to have, sort of, we've had this reset with moving from the White Pond Advisory Committee to the White Pond Task Force, is giving us an opportunity for this reset and to create that body that can maintain that communication.
I think you've got a very healthy pond, and if you just continue doing what you're doing, and as issues come up, if people raise it, then it's the time for people to raise those issues. But you've got a really healthy pond, and you've got people looking after it in the departments, the Natural Resources Commission and the Board of Health primarily, looking after it from their perspective.
I feel like having a proactive body is critical. Sort of seeing what it looks like when it's not working well, and don't want to go back to those days.
Right.
Yeah, I
So
agree with that. I agree with
having
that,
a
Evan.
proactive group as opposed to a reactive group that would come into being in response to something that's already gone wrong. I think proactive is definitely better. And the select board in their charge had people on this task force, such as myself, who don't live in the watershed. And if it is a town committee or a town task force, that could be one of the stipulations, so it doesn't become just a residence group, which you already have, right?
I mean, in the past, wasn't the problem when the beach switched to town control and they did the re-landscaping, they chopped down a bunch of trees, and there was a kind of miscommunication about how many trees are going to be chopped down, and then the consultant just did it, and it created a huge amount of ill feeling between the residents and the town people who were in charge of the contract and so forth. But that's over. I mean, and going forward, you know, aren't the magnitude of issues going to be kind of small by comparison? Just because, you know, for instance, you know, now the beach kind of worked, the pond kind of seems to have recovered in terms of cyanobacteria, and the town's done a lot of the maintenance that was requested in their land for keeping erosion under control. I mean, you know, life is good. Looking forward, I would say.
I'd see a different horizon. You got Colebrook Crossing and Sudbury. You got the new houses that are in Concord attached to it. You got parking on Alden. You got Bruce Freeman Rail Trail. You got agriculture up above. We talked about a lot about septics. I think there's kind of an unending list of things and things that come up year to year that
But-
having a body prepared to stay on top of those things is important.
But Evan, haven't we already sort of, I mean, the agricultural aspect, you know, we already, you know, sort of looked at that and said that's not a contributor of phosphorus to the pond. You know, the major phosphorus contributors have been eliminated. The erosion, the state road, the former whatever was septic system at the beach. So that we've really decreased the phosphorus input. There isn't new issues. We've got a stable pond at this point, and a very, very healthy pond, and a much more trash-free pond than there was historically. So there really aren't issues that have to be addressed all the time. I mean, I think the town beach, the recreation department's got, you know, got to work things out. They got to make some changes, but they're gonna work on that. And what is an advisory committee sort of going to do with respect to that?
I think it's eyes and ears on the ground that are focused on it.
I mean, the town's got other worries, you know. What about Giroux Park, a half-finished park on a pond, and it's just sitting there, the contractor quit. You know, I mean, they're bigger fish to fry, I'm afraid, than y'all by White Pond are in pretty good shape.
So, you know, one of the
But
things.
it doesn't cost the town anything to have an advisory committee, though.
Right,
Yes,
I mean, just
We're
take,
all, we're
yeah,
all
just-
volunteers, so it's not as if it's a
It's-
drain on town resources to have.
It is a drain on town resources and on the select board. They've got, you know, other things they need to put their attention on. But if you have an official committee, then there has to be someone from the select board that attends the meetings. They're just, you know, they're kind of flat out. That's the impression I get.
So one potential for this whatever this group is going forward is it's not just a White Pond, but it's a Ponds of Concord
Yeah.
advisory body. So I think this is sort of running into what we were just running into with the recommendations. So Alyssa, do you want to take the pen first and go through what we have on the page here and redline to a level that you would be either strike items that you don't like or redline things to a level that you would like? And we'll pick it up from there.
Okay.
Should we choose another night for a meeting, because it's becoming the holidays and people are gonna be committed?
Yeah, we should do that. If Evan, I'm out of the country again for work starting next Monday morning. And I'll be gone for a couple weeks. So if you guys want to do one in my absence, that's fine. Could pick a day. Anybody have their calendar out?
So do we want to try and get something in prior to the holidays or?
well, I mean, we're supposed to do a report this year, which December is the last month of the year, so we're not gonna meet our commitment there. Is that what we're saying?
Yeah, we were, and when Shannon emailed me about the problem with not having the meeting for 2 hours, I had indicated we might, you know, we might have to push back another month for, you know, the select board. I think that part they would totally understand with the holidays coming up, but I don't think we should stop for sure. But if we need another month
I
to
like
get,
the
if we,
hard stop at the end of this month, so I'd rather have another meeting rather than drag this on.
okay, so it's the 29th. The end of this month is in 2 days.
The end of December, yeah, so, well, the end of December, we need to have. the
Right, we
report
still have to,
written
and we
before.
still have to write the report after that, so we're, you know, yes, we need to meet and get
Yeah,
going, so.
I mean, hate to be a taskmaster, but this is, all these recommendations gotta be decided on by the next meeting.
Yeah.
We can't have another meeting like this.
Agree, Carl. So
So,
I've
yeah.
just told you guys I can't be there. Can you all kind of weigh in on a date that would be acceptable for you?
How about December 6th,
I can do that.
Wednesday, a week from today?
Sure.
Yes,
Yes.
Wait a
Evan, you
minute. I can't
Evan,
do that. I can't do that.
How
Sorry,
about the 5th?
5th I can do.
there's
That's
a,
Tuesday, huh?
there's a Zoom of the Concord Water Department on water resources in the town that I think would be important to attend. So how about the 4th or the 8th?
No, I can't do Monday.
Did we go through 7th? Did we talk about 7th?
Thursday, the 7th?
I could do the 7th at 7 o'clock.
Yeah, I can do the 7th. This is gonna be weird. So Alyssa's gonna like come up with new editions of all of the recommendations. And then we just vote them up or down. Is that what's the next meeting is? Or
We can talk about that right now. What format do you want? That's one way to do it. I'm good with that.
I think you need to track changes. So everybody is aware of the wording changes. Because
There's just
Carl,
gonna be another huge conversation, at the next meeting, I would think, but
well,
Yeah.
I'm happy
maybe
to do it,
Alyssa,
but I'm happy to do it, but I don't see how it's gonna get us any further. Honestly.
well, I think we're hearing,
Well, then we just go down the list and vote on each and stop wasting time talking about it. Just vote on what we get.
I mean, it just gets back to, what are we gonna do for reporting? We could just vote on what we get and then allow people who voted against to make some comments about, how they
It's
would
gonna
change.
lessen the impact of whatever we want to do, but we can't even decide. So it's whoever the majority puts it down and we run with it.
Yeah, it's not great recommendation to the select board if they get 17 recommendations with yeses and nos to it. You can get it down to a distilled list that majority is in agreement with.
I don't think that's gonna happen.
Yeah, that's the thing.
And we go with the majority and that's it.
I don't know. I mean, we could try with, Alyssa, can you like try to try it?
I would.
Do it in the
try
track
it.
changes, red line mode, so we can see what the edits are.
And then who will Alyssa circulate them to when she's finished with her red lines? How will the rest of us then review them between now and then on the 7th?
Well, I think per the rules, and Beth, you know this better than I mean, Alyssa can send it to everybody, right?
you can send the red line out to all of us. You just can't comment back to everybody at the same time, as far as I understand.
So
I would just, one more thing I would say is that I'm hearing Alyssa has comments or issues about some of the wording, so she will redline that. John, I think you may too. One other thing you could do is Alyssa do the first red line and then send to John, and he adds any additional to the red lines, and then we send it to the group. But we just can't comment back to everybody, on a big group email. Maybe
Mhm.
that's the list that you go with at the next meeting.
And then from a process standpoint at the meeting, we have, 5-minute discussion with the red line and the way it is and make a vote and move on to the next. And stick to the timing.
Yeah,
All right, and the wording that I'm doing is not, my feelings, it's just adding some clarity to the recommendations that are posted, not that I necessarily agree or disagree with them. Is that
I
correct?
think for a good example is, both you and John mentioned number 6, add permanent signage. The word permanent had some different kind of meaning connotation to you. So that would be the kind of things I would, you could clarify. Doesn't mean everybody's gonna agree. It just means that you're clarified to a point where,
You
It
mean
makes
permanent
sense.
ranger, right? Was that-
sorry,
Those
no, I'm
ranger and
actually
number
looking at
three.
permanent signage. I meant permanent ranger.
Yeah, that's
I
number
want
3.
permanent signage. I'm all for it.
And Melissa, I would say just as you're in there, if there's one you don't like at all, just strike it and that'll show up as a red line delete. And we'll talk about it.
Yeah, because the bottom line is we gotta vote. And that's important that this is what Linda did mention, the majority will rule.
Well, Linda said that we'd have the majority and then we'd have people who didn't vote for it say why. That's what Linda said.
Yeah, and that's what we'll put in the minutes.
The minutes is not what people are gonna read. The minutes
No,
are, the minutes
it's
are a
not gonna be
record.
the
Okay.
minutes.
That's
Um,
not,
Okay, I think this is another discussion. The meeting is at 8:10. We've seen the examples of other reports. Linda mentioned that there may not be consensus. But that's why we have a group, a task force, and there's 6 of us here. And they're not gonna wanna have all the noise about why or why not you didn't agree to. So why don't we just focus on trying to get to the ones we agree on?
I think that's a good idea.
Agreed.
We got one, number 1.
Okay, so Evan, do you want me, I won't be there, as you know, I'll be at a different time zone, but I'd heard 7th, is it December 7th at 7 PM?
Yes.
How many hours? You need do you need the whole day?
Let's do 90 minutes and try and get through as much as we possibly can.
Okay,
Because I think, many of us committed for the year 2023 and have other things going on next year. So, I think it would be good to get as much traction and make as much progress as possible on the 7th.
okay. So I will create an agenda and send it to the town meeting person for the 7th, 7 PM to 8:30. And the agenda basically will be to continue for the review of the recommendations.
Could we ask also for Linda to give us clarification about how our report should be formulated?
Yeah, Linda had given us examples of a few out there. She said there's no standard format.
No, I mean, I might with respect to minority opinions, whether they should be included.
Yeah, I could, I know I think she was at the last select board meeting. I think she's not been attending all of them, but I will reach out to her.
Okay.
Okay, all right. So, Alyssa, you have a copy of this already, so you can take this because it's in Word. We didn't PDF it. Okay, so it's what time? 8:13 PM. I'm gonna call the meeting to be adjourned.
Second.
Thank you, everybody. Good night.
Thank
Right.
you.
That's
Bye.
all.